Every now and then, at GolfPunk Towers, we get to hear about somebody in the golf industry who sounds as if they think like us and maybe want to change golf for the better, get new people into the game, that kind of thing. So it kind of spawned a new feature. It's called Our Kind of Soldier. The guy's name is Dana Garmany. He owns TroonGolf and he's up there. Let's go and see him. So how do you integrate the generational?
Well, that is indeed the issue, because just like you had integration of some ski areas and you would have snowboard only and different runs and so forth, you also had areas that would be ski only. And some resorts even today are ski only. But the golf courses are really hard because I'll give you a concept away from the golf course. Let's talk about just the dining part of it. Young people want that club, bar, and grill to be like their favorite restaurant. Loud, music, noise, bistro-like, have fun. The traditionalist wants to wear a jacket, sit in the corner, very quiet with a white tablecloth. How do you make that work? Well, it's very difficult because you normally have one space. So we're trying to do it through different times of evening, different days of the week, different offerings. But we have to convince first the older parts of that membership, if you don't do something, the hockey sticks are going in the wrong direction on the chart here. We're going to have a period of non-sustainability. So we have to do something to attract a different group. The other thing that's quite different in the club world is that over 55, you probably have 96% of the members of clubs being one-income families, and under 45, probably 96% being two-income families. So the only use times that they really have are weekends. Then you run into the club is closing for events or something. So the couple who is younger can't even use because of all this event schedule. So there has to be a bigger look at the picture and try to have a sense of fairness about the use patterns of younger people, when they can use it versus a retired person or someone who has the flexibility in their job to do whatever. All the while, we have to still recognize that somewhere between 54 and 59 is the most spending that occurs in someone's life in almost every area, but in golf as well. So we can't, as operators, go out there and ignore that baby boomer who's at the top of his career, most flexibility he's ever had, the most income, and all of a sudden we ignore him. So it's a very difficult balance, and so we think it'll be in things like 9-hole play within a 9-hole course, a short course late in the afternoons. It will be things like early morning starts for people that have soccer games for their kids in the afternoons. Trying to do everything you can to utilize that golf course in a great way. One of our favorite things we're doing today is what we're running 10K races on our golf courses at opening. It's fantastic. What better place to have a run than on a golf course? We do it ahead of play. It's been a fantastic success. It goes into our Troon Fit program as well about lifestyle and trying to stay healthy. And here's this 6 or 7 mile loop that's available for these activities. So it's a fantastic way to utilize the space in a different way. And we think there's other things to do as well, including what I mentioned earlier, the sort of short 9-hole setup in the afternoons where you've got 50 to 100-yard holes, can be done in an hour or less. And again, being creative, not just saying it's an 18 holes, turn in your scorecard, and that's the way we do it. It's very accurate today. The 55-year-old today is not the 55-year-old of 20 years ago. They don't think of themselves as old, and they're trying to also have to have their imprint on that club be different. They're working out more, they're doing more things. So we think the age is actually expanding outwards, but it still has that traditional aspect to it that people are saying, I join him, and this is why I join. And then you have other people saying, I would never join because you do those things. And that's why the private club world in America started in a downward trend way before the 2000 Q4-08 meltdown. It was happening 3 or 4 years before that, as you started getting Generation X people of starting to become affluent and have enough money to join clubs, and then saying, I don't want to, because they were saying things like, the word exclusive bothers me. I like the word diversity. The word club is almost a bad word. And that was happening before the economic meltdown. So we had people joining our clubs in 2005 who would say, I'm going to join the club, I like it, but don't put my name in the directory. A little ashamed of being in the snobbery of what they perceived to be, but it had an offering that they liked for their family. In my mind, I think that we don't have a powerful enough industry to just run people away. We need to be inclusive and try to get more people in, which is good for the game. You can look at TV ratings and you look at people that push buttons, and you can see that for whatever like or not like, Tiger Woods moves the needle. through personality or dynamism or ethnic crossing, whatever it may be, he moves the needle. And the traditional guy that many people may love, you know, XYZ, it never changes. So are there guys out there that can do that? I think McIlroy has the ability to do that. I think Ricky Fowler has the ability to do that. And guys who maybe step out a little bit and have a personality that goes beyond the golf course. But we need to make sure that someone of a different ethnic background or racial background doesn't feel they can't get into the game because of looking out there and seeing this old white man thing. I mean, it's really amazing. I believe I read that, which is incredible, one of the lowest participation rates among women in golf of the countries that play golf is I'm not sure, I think it's Scotland, not the UK, but Scotland in general, which you would think the home of golf, and it has this sort of slant to be anti-female in its approach to golf, or very separate but equal kind of things, which brings up the old Jim Crow laws of the U.S. from the 50s. Sounds crazy. Yeah, and so you look at those things and you're saying, how can that happen, that there's been this push, that this is a man's deal or a man's getaway? It used to be common in the States, very common. I was at a conference years ago, and they were talking to people that would be traditionalists, say 65, 75, 80 years old. They'd say, how many of you guys, how many of your guys' fathers, yeah, and probably would start with boomers and traditionalists, would leave the club in the 40s or 50s, would leave your house for the club 7 o'clock Saturday morning, be back at 8 o'clock Saturday night. It was like almost every hand went up. And it just doesn't happen today. That sort of male-driven escape or whatever it was, maybe that was their own man cave at the club, it became an almost every weekend thing. Well, now you've got, between more kids' activity, parental guilt, whatever the factors are, it's just not practical for that to occur. So the evolution has to be, welcoming, along with inclusive, and trying to break down the barriers as opposed to putting more up.
So what about creating a TroonGolf club specifically for the people we're talking about?
I believe as the millennials and Gen Xers move into a more affluent time in their life where they can pick up more of the load, that will happen. And it will happen and that the offering will be more specific to what they're looking to do. And it will be based around a very social, active club with a very limited set of rules. I think that will occur. What will keep it from occurring exclusively is just that group moving up in their earnings. Because you're talking about moving the weight of the operation into a group that probably isn't quite ready for that yet, but is moving. And again, that's probably the millennials would be the target for that. The Gen Xers are some mishmash of a little bit of both, and you can go to the sort of 48, 49 age group, and you have a Gen Xer who's a little bit more baby boomer, and you go to the 44, and maybe a little bit more the other way. And again, there's still, there are still people in the Gen X and millennials who grew up in a club and will still always think that they're supposed to be in a club because they were raised that way and will probably do it. But that number is dwindling so rapidly that it doesn't make sense to think that everything will be viable. In the U.S. today, you have less private clubs today than 1932.
Wow.
So that would tell you something that's happened now. Now, in fairness, remember that in 1932, almost all the golf courses were private. But there were over 4,000 in 1932. There's about 3,900 today. Of that 3,900, probably another 900 are taking outside play, so technically aren't private. And they're doing it because people aren't stepping up in line with these big initiation fee checks anymore. The model of the American club is probably evolving very much towards the UK model of money paid along the way versus a lot of money up front. That's probably what you'll see, is people just refuse to write a big check. And you can look at that today and see young people today will lease a car versus buy a car because their first big purchase was a house in 2006 and they went upside down. They're like, oh my gosh. So, that will play into it as well. But I think long term you are going to see a club evolve that will be more of a social fun club. Golf will still be a driver, it just won't be the absolute driver. It will be more about who's there versus what's outside. The conversion of doing that would be too hard to say cold turkey, here's what we do. And again, remember on the public and resort sort of pay-as-you-go thing, you're still relying on that huge participation of the boomers. The inequity you have here is that There's 27 million people in America that play golf, and there's roughly that many outside the U.S. But they still break down into different kinds of groups. And that different kind of group is, in America, 3 million people spend almost half the money. The next 4 million spend another 30-something%. So literally 7 million people spend 75% or so of all the money spent in golf, and 20 million people spend a very small amount. So no one can afford to ignore that base of people. In the UK has that, I'm not sure the numbers there, or in Japan, the same kind of things. That again, that 53 to 59 to 62-year-old who's pre-retirement is flushing a lot of cash out. So that's hard to replace with someone who's maybe struggling to make partner in a law firm, or maybe he's paying off school bills, his university bills. But I think it's coming, and I think you're going to see it in the Western USA first. That's where you've got the most chances that are taken. I'll give you a great example. This town that you're in today, there's almost 5 million people in the Phoenix metropolitan area. There's not one restaurant left you can't wear blue jeans to. Now, that started a few years ago because somebody who you have a for-profit business looking out the outside and saying, this isn't working. This coat and tie thing or jacket thing, first of all, it was coat and tie, then it became jacket, okay, then it became slacks, then it became, whatever, then it became no shorts. It really evolved because people were saying, this is what our audience is saying they want, a more casual atmosphere. So, and that's the Phoenix area, but the West has already taken steps towards jeans in clubhouses, maybe not on the golf courses yet, in the private, on Publix it happens, and other very loose dress code issues. And that evolutionary thing will only occur at clubs when those boards get taken over by younger people versus older people. But it'll get there. I'm confident it will. Well, I think there are some things about golf that are everlasting and historical and wonderful. A part of it is how long you can play. A part of